So what are some unusual signs that you're likely to become a millionaire? Number one is you have an anti-vision. Now, we've all heard about how you need to visualize the future that you want for yourself if you want to make it a reality. And even though this makes a lot of sense, over the years I've come to realize that purposely doing the exact opposite can sometimes deliver even better results. I'm talking about having an anti-vision, that is, a strong idea of the future that you do not want for yourself. I've noticed that embracing that anti-vision can fill you with a raging motivation to do everything you can to avoid it at all costs. In his best-selling book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, Mark Manson talks about the feedback loop from hell and how most people in modern society are conditioned to seek constant positivity and happiness. People believe that they should always feel good and that any negative emotions or experiences are to be avoided at all costs. However, that avoidance can be turned into fuel. Fear, for example, is often seen as a negative thing, but fear is nothing other than a physiological reaction that demands an action, fight or flight. So you can use fear as fuel to force you to take action in the opposite direction of what you fear. Now, negative emotions or thoughts can be daunting and paralyzing, but that's because they can be extremely strong. So if you can manage to channel all that massive energy into making sure that those thoughts never become a reality, then you can tap into an almost limitless source of power. For example, I fear a life where the things that could have existed if I worked hard to make them happen don't exist. I don't know why that freaks me out. And that fear shapes my anti-vision and fuels my everyday efforts. Whenever I start a new project or think about taking a risk, I also make sure to think about what would happen if I didn't take action. And the idea of that void, of that missed opportunity, is like an adrenaline rush that puts me into action immediately. A strong anti-vision can make you bold. And I found that investing in a vision for your future can be just as productive as clearly defining your anti-vision. So if you do have an anti-vision, even if you don't call it that, then you probably have an untapped source of motivation that could propel you to success, and maybe you just haven't realized it yet. Number two is you are pretty lazy. Now, laziness is one of those things that immediately sparks negative associations. But in my experience, laziness has way too often been a catalyst for efficiency. I've noticed that some individuals who are naturally lazy tend to seek ways to accomplish any given task with the least amount of effort, which quite often leads to the creation of time-saving tools or systems. For example, the invention of the wheel or the development of automation can both be traced back to a desire to reduce physical labor, to make things easier, to accomplish the same or even more with less work. Now, many successful entrepreneurs out there have identified inefficiencies in their own lives and have created successful businesses to address them. For example, think about Amazon or e-commerce as a whole. It's an entire industry built around the idea that you can buy everything you need without ever having to leave your house. In fact, you can purchase pretty much anything from the comfort of your own bed. Now, we can debate whether this is healthy or not, but we cannot deny that it has been incredibly profitable and productive. Bill Gates has famously been quoted saying, "I choose a lazy person to do a hard job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it." Now, this quote basically emphasizes the notion that individuals who seek ways to minimize effort can potentially be highly resourceful and creative when it comes to problem solving, which is a very valuable skill in almost any field, including business and technology. And finally, and this ties to the previous point, laziness can be uncomfortable when it leads to procrastination or missed opportunities. But this discomfort can serve as a motivator to find ways to work smarter, optimize processes, and create passive income streams, all of which are key elements to becoming wealthy. So, while laziness itself might not directly lead to wealth, the desire to minimize effort can definitely drive you to innovate, seek efficiency, and identify opportunities for creating value. Now, if I have to be completely honest, guys, the reason why I try to create as many passive income streams as possible is because I don't want to work 8 hours a day. Now, you can call that lazy, but there is often a thin line between being lazy and just being smart with your time and your efforts. I just haven't figured out which one I am yet. Number three is you are impatient. Now, impatience, just like laziness, can sometimes be a catalyst for innovation and rapid progress. So if you are an impatient person when it comes to the status quo, you may be motivated to find quicker and more efficient solutions to problems. Impatient individuals in general can be more inclined to take risks and pursue business ventures. This is because they tend not to want to wait for traditional career paths or gradual wealth growth. And this impatience can lead them to start businesses or invest in high-growth opportunities that have the potential for significant financial rewards. This is actually personal to me because I spent 6 years of my life studying architecture, and after graduating, I came to the conclusion that I could have learned all of that in half the time if I wanted to. The school curricula basically forced me to waste 3 additional years if I wanted to get my degree by unnecessarily dragging contents that could have been incorporated in a fraction of the time. Add the vacations and breaks between school years, and you end up wasting massive amounts of time. So when I realized that I wanted to learn everything I could about finances and money, I decided to basically skip school altogether this time and instead chose self-education. And it took me a fraction of the time to learn the key concepts that allowed me to become financially independent. The whole process from complete beginner to basically not having to work anymore took me about 6 years. And that's just how long it took me to graduate as an architect before I could even start making any money. That's when I realized that impatience can actually be a catalyst for rapid and valuable progress. My entire life I was told that I was an impatient person, and I was made to believe that that was supposed to be a bad thing. Especially when I was younger, I was repeatedly and purposely shamed for being impatient. But later, I learned that impatience can drive you to quickly adapt to changing circumstances. You may be more inclined to pivot your entire career or investments if you believe there are faster routes to financial success, which is exactly what I did. And I vividly remember talking to some family friends about my plans to do exactly that, to pivot my career and take some risks. And I was actively discouraged from pursuing that. Now, looking back, I'm actually incredibly glad that I didn't listen. And that's when I finally learned that very valuable lesson: never take advice from people you wouldn't trade places with. Number 4 is you don't fear risk. Let me just put it simply. Risk is inherent to any human endeavor. What's funny to me is that people who are very risk averse tend to take the highest risks and pay the highest costs without even knowing about it. Think about it this way. What do you think would be to take the safe path and avoid risk? Most people out there would answer this question by saying, go to school, get a 9-to-5 job, and work 40 hours a week for the rest of your life. But in fact, this is the most dangerous path you could possibly take. First of all, if you work a 9-to-5, you most likely have a single source of income, which means that if you lose your job, you effectively can't make ends meet, and you would be in a very dire situation. Also, working a 9-to-5 means that you're trading your time for money, which means that there is a cap on how much you can earn because there's only 24 hours in a day. Now, every successful entrepreneur out there has embraced risk-taking as a necessary step to leverage opportunities. But what's funny is that leaving school and starting a business, for example, is often seen as far more risky than graduating and getting a job. What most people ignore, though, is that low-risk ventures tend to provide low rewards, whereas high-risk ventures can potentially be exponentially more rewarding and lead to great wealth. In reality, what is perceived as being low risk is guaranteed to keep you poor and trapped in the rat race. The interesting thing, though, is that in most cases, taking a risk involves simply risking your time. You don't risk your life or your health or your future when you risk starting a business or pursuing an investment opportunity. Yeah, you might risk capital, but you can always earn that money back. I'd much rather risk spending 10 years trying to start a successful business than 30 years working a 9-to-5. Those 10 years of experience building a business have a much higher chance of making me a millionaire than 30 years trapped in the rat race. Remember guys, you lose 100% of the chances you don't take. Yes, you could fail, but as Seth Godin puts it, the only thing worse than starting something and failing is not starting something. Number 5 is you are stubborn. Now, I first associated stubbornness with success when I was about 10 or 11 years old. This one night, we were having a sleepover at a friend's house after spending the entire day playing Gran Turismo 2, which was a very popular racing game at the time. And I remember that night after all my friends went to sleep, I stayed up trying to win this one race that had eluded me all day, and I just couldn't get past second place. And so that night, I played the same race over and over again for hours. And around 4 a.m., I finally won the race. And I suddenly heard my friend's voice in the dark saying, "You are so stubborn." And I remember freaking out because I thought everyone was sleeping, but all that time he was actually watching me hustle with the game for hours. And then he said, "Dude, I would have given up hours ago." I remember that night vividly because that was the first time I ever realized that stubbornness was an unconventional virtue. It was the thing that made me win the race. And I wasn't particularly gifted at the game, I just never stopped trying. What's funny to me is that it never really felt like I was struggling. I was actually having a great time replaying the same race over and over again until I got what I wanted. I was having fun, and that night my friend unknowingly let me know that that level of stubbornness was apparently not normal. Later in life, I realized that stubbornness is just an ugly word for tenacity. And tenacity has served me very well in many occasions, especially when trying to achieve ambitious goals. In fact, history is filled with stories of individuals who refused to give up on their visions even in the face of adversity or naysayers, and eventually overcame every obstacle and achieved their ambitions. Just think about J.K. Rowling, for example. She was rejected by at least 12 publishers before one of them finally accepted to publish Harry Potter in 1997. She went on to become richer than the Queen. Howard Schultz struggled for years before he was finally able to acquire Starbucks and transformed it into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed, I just found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb." So next time you find yourself hustling and enjoying it, realize that it could be a clue that you have a very bright future ahead. Anyway, those are the 5 unconventional attributes that, when channeled properly, have the potential to make you millions. What do you guys think? Do you agree with this list? And how many, if any, of these attributes do you actually recognize in yourself? Please let me know in the comments down below. I would very much like to start getting to know you guys. So anyway, thank you again so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.